Welcome to Clutch Conversations, the series where we dive into critical challenges shaping businesses today. I'm Sergey, Senior Vice President Development at Clutch, and today we're tackling one of my favorite concerns, which, if you can put it that way, for mid-market and small businesses is securing their organizations with limited cybersecurity resources. It's a high-stakes game, and the threats are constantly evolving, almost seems like daily. To help us break it all down today, and I'm super excited for this conversation, I'm joined with Kenneth Ellington. He's a cyber threat hunter and founder of Ellington Cyber Academy. So let's get into it. Kenneth, appreciate you joining us today.
Of course, glad to be on, Sergey.
So, Ken, the cybersecurity is probably one of the most fast evolving and high stakes industries out there. For you, what was the aha moment that made you say, this is my calling? Was there a specific breach, attack, or experience that made you want to get into this career?
Well, initially, I never wanted to do this because I thought it'd be very boring. Honestly, uh, it was kind of by chance. My dad's actually been a software engineer for the past like 28, 29 years now. He's one that kind of pushed me and my brother go inside of cybersecurity or technology overall. So through happenstance, after I finished my associate's degree at Hillsborough Community College, I went to USF in Tampa because I'm from Tampa. I kind of went to niche down inside of a more focus area for my job prospects after I graduated, and he suggested IT. And so I kind of went down that path. And then I met, funny story, I met my actual executive from cybersecurity at Public Supermarkets. If you ever live in the South, that's the place to shop at. I love it. Sandwiches are delicious. Awesome place to work at. And he kind of told me about cybersecurity. I had no idea that they did that. I just thought we sold groceries, so it was kind of shocking to me that we had cybersecurity. And from there, he gave me an opportunity to kind of work inside of the SOC environment. I did everything he asked me to, and then I fast forward 9 months later, I get an interview there and I get the job. And from there, I kind of realized that this is something I'm really passionate about. I like actually learning about it. The hard stuff is actually fun towards me. And then from there, I kind of just kept going. And then I got to this point, basically.
I need to pay attention more when I'm grocery shopping. Maybe Uh, beyond, so today, common threats like ransomware, what other things are right now or emerging or frequently overlooked that are security risks for small and mid-sized businesses, especially ones that might not have the funds to hire like extraordinary large teams?
I would say phishing is probably still the biggest vertical. So basically, it's where an attacker will send a malicious attachment or link or an email towards
Hmm.
a corporation. It could be small, medium-sized businesses, and they use it to either download malware, steal credentials, or put ransomware on someone's machine, encrypting files. So that's still probably the biggest attack vector for I think all industries and all firms in the most part. So having proper systems in place to kind of prevent that would be beneficial for those firms.
So those things, are they more cultural where people have to look out for it, or are they also technical as well?
I'd say a little bit of both from a cultural and like human standpoint. Human beings get very busy. When we get busy, we make mistakes. So
Mhm.
if attackers are able to kind of sneak it in through this volume, 'cause a lot of it's just number games for them for a lot of the point. They can trick somebody. Right? I fell for one of my phishing emails at my corporation because I was super busy. I wasn't paying attention, which happens to me. And this is my entire job to kind of watch out for things like this. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, right? So kind of doing training and making people understand and have buy-ins at the corporation, understanding what happens if they actually mess up with this is super important. I think the issue most firms have is they kind of try to do it like a gotcha for the employees, and so they get very hesitant to kind of do a click on anything can lead to other issues. So making sure everyone inside the firm is involved inside the entire process when it comes to security is
Mhm.
really, really important, right? Because it goes from people, processes, and technology, right? People is the most important aspect of it, right? Because if the human aspect is not taken care of, then it doesn't matter how technically advanced you are inside your firm.
No, yeah, it's funny. I got a text from our founder and board member yesterday, but it was also a phishing scam. Not, I mean, it happens on a daily basis at our firm too. So, for smaller firms, but growing, given your experience, is it difficult for people to hire cybersecurity professionals that they can, get trained on, set up things, or are there other options, that they might be able to take in the early days?
So I'll start from the small business standpoint. It's incredibly hard for them to find a cybersecurity professional. One, because we're very expensive a lot of times, right? To hire a specialist.
Hmm.
So the specialist is going to charge you $90,000 for like one specific niche, right? It's kind of hard for them to afford that. So normally what happens is they'll have like an IT personnel, even if they have one, which is still pretty rare. So that person is in charge of the entire IT infrastructure for information technology, right? So servers, websites, right? Payment system, processing stuff, right? If they have a public facing website, that as well. And so making them add on all the different cyber layers and vectors is a lot for them, right? And not all IT professionals understand cybersecurity, so it makes it very hard for them to try to find somebody. So a lot of routes what firms will do will they'll hire like an MSP or a
Hmm.
managed security services provider like ReliaQuest or CrowdStrike or Deepwatch or Expel, name a few places. They'll hire those professionals, right? Because they have an entire team dedicated of cybersecurity professionals, right? And so you pay a certain fee based off the level of support that you want. Once you pay that fee, they'll basically manage your environment for you. So instead of you having to hire security engineer, SOC analyst, penetration tester, cybersecurity manager, which is going to cost you over $500,000, we just pay $60,000 and then manage your entire environment for you, right? So it makes it a lot easier for them to actually handle that.
And you're so outsourcing, you're also hiring them because they are the experts and we're not the experts in security. So, and you kind of named off that list already for what are the best outsourcing ROI. You said like penetration testing. Is there anything else that you'd lean on outsourcing versus in-house?
Um, Normally for like a business standpoint, right? You outsource functions and capabilities that are not key to the success of your business, right? Um, so most smaller firms, that's not going to be cybersecurity unless you are a cybersecurity firm like we are, right? So a lot of our stuff is done in-house. That's our expertise. So if you're like a small local bakery, you have like five locations inside of the DMV area, right? Um, it may not make sense for you to train and retain a full-time cybersecurity professional, right? It may make more sense for you to outsource that towards a firm that is their entire job in existence is to protect firms, right? Now, if you're a really large firm, you're growing and you're really expanding, then you might want to start to build out your own cybersecurity team, right? Just depends.
Hmm. So these organizations, when kind of resource constrained, if they wanted to implement, let's say, a risk-based patch management strategy, to cover some of the critical vulnerabilities, should this be in-house, outsourced, or using one of the people you spoke with about?
It will depend, right? There's certain tools you can use, but again, like you can use Nasus, Tenable, right? If you want to kind of do attack simulations, you can use Atomic Red Team from Red Canary. I know that's a bunch of word vomit, but those are just the different platforms you can use.
Yeah,
But again, if you don't have someone that's like versed in that and knows what they're doing, you'll waste a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of energy, right? Which
yeah,
is not what we want. So
yeah.
I normally tell people, right, if you're below a certain threshold for like revenue, just to I'll probably outsource it honestly until you can actually hire
Mm.
someone or bring someone on part-time to do it, right? It's going to be more efficient for you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So, it's funny. I was just at a summit and people don't think they can get hacked until they do. And there was a story that was told where the hackers, they got into their system, they deleted all their backups. There was no seven for 72 hours, their site was down, and this company did not have an incident response plan, and that caused some significant issues. One thing maybe I was going to ask you is, what would you include in an incident response plan that kind of makes it practical, actionable? People aren't experts in security, but they need to be able to respond quickly to things like that.
So, should put this. Most small businesses don't have that or know what that even is, right? Which is
Yeah.
where the big issue is, right? The worst time to plan for a flood or fire is when your house is on fire and you're trying to escape, and when your house is being flooded and you're trying to escape, right? At the worst time to be like, oh, I probably should have planned this out, right? Which is what happened, right? So that's why I believe it's like over 50% of businesses, that small businesses that get attacked with cybersecurity attacks shut down within a couple of years because they can't afford to come back from it because they don't properly plan for it, right?
Mhm.
So at a bare minimum, right, know what your critical assets are, right? So know what are the key functions inside your business that you need to have to make revenue, make money. Those are your key assets, right? Because you can't protect everything, right? Your budget's not limited, right? It's basic risk management principles, right? So threats and vulnerabilities, right? What, because technically, right, your roof, I don't know how I should put this, right? Let's go for car. Your tires are vulnerability are vulnerable to being shot out, right? But how likely is that to happen, right? Not very likely, right? So what is the threat from that standpoint, right? Maybe it's a pothole, maybe it's a nail in the road, right? That's a threat towards it. Now, how likely is that, right? You calculate that, and then you get a number and attach a score towards that to basically associate the risk towards your own environment. So have some type of mathematical equation for that. You can look one up online or just ask me in the chat or in the comments, whatever the case may be, to actually plan that out. Once you have that, you can then work backwards to understand, hey, here's the things we need to protect, right? And then plan for worst case scenario, right? And then mock that up, right? For a small business, you can do it maybe once a quarter or maybe biannually, right? Just run like a tabletop exercise. If there is an attack, right? There's a fire, there's a flood, right? There's an earthquake. Someone tries to shut down your systems, right? Do you have backups for that, right? Just run through those scenarios, either with your in-house person, if you decide to go down that route, or with your MSSP provider, right? And they should lay out a plan with you, and you should get training credit to basically do that with them as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. Plan way before. Actually, I'm going to start using that. Like, don't plan during the flood or the fire. Um, that's great advice. And one thing, if they don't have an instant response, and let's say tomorrow they get hacked, and what's the first thing they should do? And what's the biggest mistake some companies make if, they wake up, hacked, data's compromised, everything's locked out.
First thing we gotta do is pray, because you're gonna need that. Um, Second thing is, again, ideally, you at least if you don't have a plan, at least have the number of someone you can call, right? Because every minute and every hour, is very critical towards this, right? Um, from there, once you find somebody through referral, online, whatever the case may be, you probably won't have the time to like do a thorough deep dive into who they are and what they do from the standpoint of comparing prices because again, your house is on fire, you just want to kind of get out, get safe. So you'll have to hire that person. You're gonna get overcharged more than likely because again, you're not in a position to strain. Your house is on fire and they can take care of it. So they can charge you what they want to charge you. You should understand that, right?
Mhm.
And then from there, work with them to see what needs to get done, right? Please be cooperative, right? I've seen a lot of times they'll argue with us. I'm like, you're literally on fire right now. Like, why are you arguing with me, right? You hired us to do this job, right? So trust them, trust in the process. Once it's been remediated, right, then you can like kind of assess the damages and start to plan forward and ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing people don't realize is how expensive it can get after the fact. So without, like you said, planning before, you're just giving a lot more money later. So no, yeah, those things are not anything to joke with, especially nowadays with how sophisticated these hackers have come. So, one question I like to ask, if you had a magic wand and could, instantly fix one major weakness that most businesses suffer from, what would it be? And then why do companies get it so wrong, whatever that thing is?
I'll probably say documentation, right? That is probably my biggest pet peeve. From the standpoint, I don't like repeating myself and doing things twice, right?
Hmm.
And I would say technology and security firms specifically are very poor at having documentation. Most firms that go inside it don't have any good documentation, like very large firms, right? Which you'd be shocked at because you probably use them in your day-to-day life, Sergey. Um, so I would say that's probably the biggest thing. Our reason being is let's say let's say Sergey, I'm the senior and you're the lead, and you get hired from Google. They pay you $500,000 and you leave the firm, right? Great for Sergey, right? Now he's rich. That means though, if you didn't document anything, that means I have to basically figure out myself, right? On top of my own jobs, which then leads to gaps inside of our systems, which is very common, which will then lead to mistakes, which will then eventually lead towards attacks, which will cost us money. And I might get fired because of it, right? So being able to document your processes and make them very repeatable is very key. That saves you a lot of time, makes your day a lot more efficient.
Yeah, we don't like to call it get hit by a bus syndrome, but we can call it win the lottery syndrome. Like if someone wins the lottery and leaves, do you have the documentation in place? Yeah. No, I appreciate that. All right, so what we like to do, Kenneth, at the end is end with some rapid fire questions, a little bit out of the box. What's the one app on your phone that you can't live without?
Ah, probably CBS Sports.
Okay, who's your team? Can't say that.
The Buccaneers, Tampa
Okay,
Bay.
I love Baker Mayfield. We're a Washington family, but I respect that guy's story a lot. So, and Mike Evans, Hall of Famer,
I'm saying he's been doing it since I've been like in high school.
right?
It's the crazy part about it.
Yeah. Do you listen to any podcasts? And if you do, what is your go-to podcast?
Um, Back to sports. Get up
Okay.
with Mike Greenberg in the morning.
hmm And then I'm wondering if the theme here is going to continue. So if you didn't have your career in cybersecurity, what would you be doing?
Funny enough, to surprise people, I'll be a chef.
A chef. Nice.
Yes.
Favorite cuisine?
Probably Jamaican food 'cause my family's from Jamaica.
Mm.
So, beans and rice, cocoa bread, jerk chicken, jerk salmon, rum cake.
I'm getting hungry just talking about it. So, Kenneth, thank you today for the conversation. And, tell people where they can find you, where to follow, especially if you have other content that you're putting out. And yeah, thanks everybody for watching. And Kenneth, thank you for your time.
Of course, you can follow me at LinkedIn, Kenneth Ellington, or you can follow our business page, Ellington Cyber Academy, and you can follow us on YouTube as well at Ellington Cyber Academy.
Nice. Thanks again.
Thank you, Sergey.